we bring up our guest for today and does a phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal job covering the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And you can follow him on Twitter. And I tell everybody, follow all Keith does there on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Does an awesome job. Also Inquirer.com. Keith, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. How you been, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Hope you're having a good summer, and it's always good hanging with you. Look, there's a lot to discuss. You know, we haven't touched on a bunch of things, and I want to get into James Harden and all those kind of things in a little bit. But let me start with this, Keith. I know you heard what Joel Embiid had to say, basically where he said, "Hey, I want to win a championship, whether it's here or somewhere else." It's got a lot of people up in arms. Do you view it as just, hey, man, guy's being honest, he wants to win a championship, or I think Joel's kind of laying it off like he's trolling, or it's just the beginning of what could be the end, maybe a year or so from now. How do you look at it?
I mean, I look at it more of the latter, what you said. I mean, I don't think any of us should be surprised, right? I mean, you look at it, Joel is basically saying, because he said that comment, but he went on and said, there's no, I want continuity. Like, he's played with different teammates. And we all kept saying to ourselves, the way the Sixers keep losing, the way they keep trading players, getting new players, there's going to come a time where Joel Embiid is going to basically say, hey, I want out, right? I mean, we all realize that. And I feel like that Joel was basically sending a message to the front office, just saying, hey, look, what are you guys going to do? I mean, right now we have the Dame Lillard stuff hovering around us. You also have James Harden saying he wants to be traded. But then you're hearing that, Daryl Morey wants, an all-star type level player for him. Tobias Harris, there was teams asking for him. And then they had also outrageous trade requests. And Joel's looking around and he's seeing all these other teams improving and getting better. So, he can troll all he wants, but Joel's smart enough to know to say what he means. And I believe that he said it. He got his point out. And now he's trying to walk it back to the fans, but he got his message out to the Sixers front office.
So in your estimation, Keith, how would the front office, I don't necessarily mean like handle what Joel said, but like, will this spur action in your estimation? Or is Daryl Morey going to play the long game like he, generally does? And if we're hearing he is asking for the moon, he's not going to move off that till right before the season. How do you think that expedites this thing? Do you think it does speed it up if he says that?
No. I mean, because I think like Daryl Morey's in a tough spot right now. Like at this particular time, Joel is under contract. What he's going to get, he has $213.2 million coming to him. He has his first year of a 4-year extension. I think that the problem that we have right now is that Daryl Morey is on the clock. And basically, it's one of those things where, yeah, he can trade James Harden today for a bunch of role players and maybe a couple draft picks, or maybe a couple draft picks. But what is that going to get you a championship right now? It's not. So the best thing that he has to do is he has to wait until he gets the best possible offer in order to get someone who's going to be better than James. You know what I mean? Because at this particular time, I don't think that you're going to hurry up and make a deal that's going to make your team worse than what it is right now.
Do you think he'd be willing to accept, let's just say it was the Clippers, right? Do you think that he would be willing to take a Terrence Mann in picks, or would he not budge off of that? I'm just giving you an example of it. Not a superstar for sure, but a guy who could help. Is that just not what Daryl Morey's mindset is? He'd rather keep James here and hope you can kind of pacify him.
Yeah, I think hope you can pacify him. Now, Terrence Mann is a good player. You can look at him and you can probably say that, him and Maxey could be a backcourt of the future, so to speak. My question is like, but who's going to be the point guard in that backcourt, right? And then the thing about the draft picks is now, if this was, let's say, the Detroit Pistons or someone else, then you can look at that draft pick being a nice up-and-coming young player. But at this particular point, The draft pick is going to be a late first round draft pick unless there's multiple ones. And is that person actually going to help you with this team? And no, the answer is no. So, yeah, you would get some collateral. I mean, you would get a lot of assets, but I think that's going to be something that's really going to have to they're going to have to come back to as we progress towards the season, and then think long and hard about it, because at this particular time, I do not believe that that's going to a Terrence Mann in a late first round pick is going to help them, win a championship.
Derek?
Yeah, sorry, just trying, Keith. I'm trying to stay here with wife. My wife.
We've had quite a day, technically. Yes,
unbelievable. Yeah. It was fine up until the last segment, but anyway, yes. I don't know what you guys have talked about, but I will start with this, Keith. We've talked about this before. I'm sick of the drama. I'm just tired of the drama. It doesn't seem to be going in anywhere. You have way more insight on this than we do. And maybe you have a better perspective that I'm not even thinking about. Maybe I should be a little bit more. But having covered sports for as long as I have, this is the most drawn out, inconsistent drama that's going nowhere that I can remember being a part of in a long time. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, man.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you know what? The best way to describe the 76ers, and I hate to say it, and it's been this way for years, if there's one word, you have to say dysfunction. Like you do. I mean, it's extremely dysfunctional. The one thing is, like, you keep hearing these stories and these reports that come out, and all the reports are accurate, about James not wanting to be here and Daryl, wanting the moon for him. But they're all stuff that, if we go back 3 years ago or whatever, it was the same way for a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like none of this stuff is new. And it's kind of like, if you're a fan, you want to say, okay, wake me up right before the season to see if he's here or not, and then we'll decide. But at the same time, you look at it, and I wrote an article about what Joel said today, and we think of all the co-stars that he had and guys who were supposed to be impactful in his team, and we're talking about in his 6 years of the playoffs, right, that they made it, and there's upward of 10 or more people. You got J.J. Redick, you got Jimmy Butler, you have Ben Simmons, you have, and I know they were bench players, but you got Ersan Ilyasova, Marco Bellinelli, you have Robert Covington, you have Dario Saric, you have Markelle Fultz, you have Al Horford, you have, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on again. And it's kind of like, he's right. You need continuity. But it's kind of like it's like a record that keeps getting played over and over again. But people just change the name of the album, or the record. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's like a remake, but it's the same thing. And it's no matter who they got, no matter who's the coach, no matter who's the executive in charge, it's the same thing. The same song.
Well, let me follow up on that then, Keith. Is that just, look, do you go to the top and Josh Harris hasn't put the right people in place, whether it's GMs, coaches, players, whatever, or is it the common denominator is Joel and he's not making those around him good enough? Like, where is it? Where on that spectrum?
I think you have to go with the top. I mean, you have to, because, the top is ahead of Joel, right?
Yep.
And the one thing that, Joel, you got to, Joel is kind of sort of, a lot of people criticize him now, and then there's also people who love Joel, right? Who Joel can't do wrong, and people are getting mad at these reports saying he was only trolling people, right. And everybody knows, that wasn't a troll, right? That wasn't a troll. The troll part is a walk back. But to me, the point is, Joel only does what he's allowed to do, and what he was allowed to do early on. I mean, we're all parents, right? It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you have a kid and or a child, and you let the child jump all over the couch and curse mom and dad out. But as soon as somebody comes in the house, you want to scold your child and say, hey, this ain't how it's supposed to be. And I think that's how it was with Joel. They gave him the keys before he even played a game. He did what he did. He didn't have to work extremely hard to do what he does. And now all of a sudden he'll say something, and everybody wants to jump down on him. And I'm like, but who were the veterans to teach him right for wrong? How come he never got benched for not giving optimum effort? What happened? So you have to blame the people in charge of him from the top on down, because it's you don't spoil a kid and then all of a sudden when they're 5 saying, I'm gonna scold you, I'm gonna punish you for not doing right.
This is setting the precedence for some bad mojo leading into this season, man. I mean, your guard, James Harden, doesn't want to be here. Joel Embiid puts it out there on a show. Well, I'd like to win one here or somewhere else. And you got a new head coach coming in here. And we know that the role players look up to the two leaders. Who are the two biggest leaders on this team? Who are the two big stars on this team? James Harden, Joel Embiid. That's some bad mojo, man, when you're trying to go into a new season, forget about the past. But the players, because it's human nature, they're going to watch and listen to everything a little bit more closely than Joel and James do from this point on.
Yeah, yep, you're exactly right. And look, the one thing is when you talked about bad mojo, like it's bigger than those two, right? Because you got James saying he wants to be out, like you said, and then Joel saying what he says. But you look at a guy like Tobias Harris, who's in the final year of his contract, and typically guys want to get paid in the final year of their contract. That's that contract year where you just like lay it all out. Well, you're a fourth option. So guess what? Your next contract is probably going to be the equivalent of a fourth option. And then you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey, although they're all saying we're going to wait, but he's looking around and seeing other guys who came in his draft class getting these nice extensions. So you feel like it is like you said, you got a new coach. Everybody's talking championships, but everyone has their own individual things that they're trying to accomplish, right? So that can lead to some stress as well. So you're right. This isn't an ideal situation to go into a season with, because let's face it, we don't even know who's going to be on the team. The only thing about this team is they have 5 centers on the standard contract, standard roster. 5 centers. That's all we know about this team. We don't know who's going to be in the backcourt. We don't know if Tobias is going to be here. We don't know if Maxey's going to get his extension. Things like that. We don't know if Joel's going to blow up even more. So if you're Nick Nurse, you're saying to yourself, like, can we hurry up and get this resolved? Because the goal is, Nick Nurse said it, and Pat Beverley basically said it as well.
Yeah.
We know everybody wants to win a championship, but here in Philadelphia, we have to get out of the second round. And this just doesn't seem it just doesn't seem like the pieces are aligning right now.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with Nurse. He's got to be sitting there like, what's our identity? Because I don't know who I have. Exactly. I don't know how to go about this thing. Look, I'm sure he got paid a lot of dough, but he's got to. I think there's probably a little part of him that's like, I don't know about this situation, man. What did I walk myself into? Keith, what is the plan with the bigs? Why is Montrezl Harrell on this roster?
I mean, again, I mean, that one.
He's trying to answer that seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
That one was surprising to me. Montrez could be someone that they could move. I also think that it was one of those situations where you look at it. The Sixers are, for the most part, were trying to bring back guys on minimum salary contracts, right? And Montrez was available. I mean, to me, that was a little bit of a head scratcher, because you knew that Philip Petrosov was a guy who they were really interested in getting a good look at, right? That one was a little mind-boggling to me. I really can't explain that one. I can't explain that one.
I mean, you escaped him. He opted out, and you brought it back. I don't know. All right, your best guess with either Harden or Harris are either here when the season starts, or both.
You know what? I think we're going to see Harris here when the season starts. I do. In regards to Harden, to me, that's the great question. I mean, the scary part is if you got to Daryl Morey and James Harden have to do they got to get into a room for 48 hours and just like hash things out. You know what I mean? Because, Harden, you expect him not to tear things up. But as we saw how the Ben Simmons situation went, it can really tear a team apart.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing is Doc Rivers was here a year before that. This is Nick Nurse's first year. And you don't want that bad type of vibe, like D Gunn said, can tear a team apart. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think James is capable of doing that. I don't know if he would, just because he's done that at the previous two spots. And then all of a sudden no team in their right mind will sign him next year. But at the same time, it could happen. And, I don't really think that that's in their best interest.
Is Pat Beverley a good addition to this team? I mean, he's outspoken. He's not going to pull punches. You already have a PJ Tucker who will speak his mind. And when you have a team that's walking on eggshells like this right now, is that a good thing or a bad thing to have a Beverley in here? And is he an asset to this team?
I think Pat Bev would have been a better asset if they would have got him 3 years ago.
Okay.
But when you look at him and you look at the relationship that he has with James, that could be a good asset in regards to someone that say, hey, James, look, bro, like, it's time for you to just stay here. We can make this happen. Now, the one thing I will say about Pat Bev, he can be irritant, to opposing players.
Right.
His shot he's been an exceptional 3-point shooter for most of his career. The shot has went down the last couple of years. But a lot of young guys love playing with him. Like a lot of guys, like he'll help bring out some toughness. But then when you also look at it, you say to yourself, the Sixers were wanting to just give out minimum salaries to guys, right?
Right.
So, or was there anybody out there that we look at and say, who was going to be willing to come here for a minimum and be gung-ho to do it? So it's kind of sort of like you get what you pay for. It's like, like when you go to a rental car spot, you go to National Rental Car, and then it's like, okay, they got these over here. You can't touch them because they're you're going to be priced out. But there you go. Someone slid a nice little card over there on like the budget side. And that's what Pat Bev is. You're getting a nice little guy for a budget. But the problem is, it would have been better off. I felt like 3 years ago, he would have helped them win the championship. Now he can help them. If you want James Harden to come back, he can help you with that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem ultimately, Keith, is you say dysfunction, drama, any D word, but it's not good. It's getting tiring for Sixers fans. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
Yep.
And this kind of like is ongoing. It's like this, like we said, it's just a remake of the same song.
Yep.
And
well said.
Every summer.
You're right. And a song you probably didn't want remade.
Hey Keith, real quick. It's the off season, man. But are you tired of talking about this drama and writing about this drama?
I am. Yeah. I mean, I am because it's funny. I don't expect anything to happen until the beginning of the season, or if not the season. We're going to go rehash it again. Yep. And we keep seeing the same reports coming out, and people are using different ways to describe it, but it's the same stuff. Yep. So it comes a time where, like you say, this is the off season. This is this. You do get a little tired of it because, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like the drama is starting with this team is starting to outweigh the positives.
Yep.
It is. It starts to. And then I think, though, what we do is we get a little blindsided because they'll have some success in the regular season, and then the playoffs come, and it's the same old narrative. Yep. The same thing. And there's always a point in that second round where you're like, okay, they got it. This is the time that they're going to win. And then boom, when it matters the most, they lose. And then that summer, there's always one person saying, guess what? I got blamed for the loss, or guess what? I didn't get the money I was supposed to get, and they won out. And then you're talking about that person the whole time. But always that person is the guy that everyone wanted. And then when they got him, they're not happy. I'm telling you, it's the same thing. It's like I said, the same song, just a different remake, you know?
Exhausting, Keith. But we always love talking to you, man. We always love when you hop on. Give us your insights and your information. We do appreciate it, Keith. Thank you, man.
Bro.
And again, everybody,
thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Follow Keith, Pompey on Sixers. Keith, thanks, man. Enjoy the rest of your summer, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bro.
All right, take care. Yeah, he's right. He is dead on with that, man.